There are moments in Welcome to Derry Episode 4 that feel less like television and more like the town itself, whispering directly into your ear. This episode doesn't just answer questions, it opens doors you never realized were closed, doors the adults of Derry refuse to look at, doors the children are being silently pushed through. And tonight, we step through all of them. Because Episode 4 hides something dark, something that wasn't in the movies, barely hinted at in the book, and absolutely not meant for the eyes of people who want Derry to make sense. You saw the moment, the one that made your stomach twist. The mechanical whine, the spinning blade, and the sinking realization that Pennywise doesn't need balloons to terrify you. Sometimes he just needs a familiar childhood fear, sharpened into a weapon. But Episode 4 doesn't stop there. No, this episode is built like a trap, layered with symbols, callbacks, and small clues that hint at Derry's deeper infection, the one no adult ever sees. Tonight, we unpack every hidden truth, every secret breadcrumb, every eerie callback to King's novel and beyond, because Episode 4 isn't just a chapter, it's a warning. So, let's go back to where everything spiraled, because the kids finally captured something the adults cannot see, and that should terrify you more than the clown itself. The aftermath of the photo. And why it matters. Episode 4 opens exactly where last week left off. The kids sprinting through Derry with their forbidden photograph, the one containing a face adults aren't built to process. Their panic ripples through the streets like a shockwave, and as the camera sweeps across town, something quietly unsettling happens. Derry starts showing its true shape. Every storefront feels like a ghost of something we've seen before, not because they're the same places, but because Derry recycles itself. Restaurants, hotels, signs, names. Nothing in this town is random. Everything is a memory of a memory, a reflection of a reflection, twisted just enough to stay familiar. That's why the callbacks hit so hard, not because they're Easter eggs, but because Derry is alive, reshaping itself to keep the cycle intact. But the real horror comes when the kids reach Chief Bowers. The chief, a man who literally cannot see the truth. You know the look on an adult's face when they've already decided what the truth should be. Bowers walks into that scene wearing it. The kids hand him the photo, the evidence that proves the unexplainable, and for one horrifying moment, you think he sees it. His expression shifts, he leans in, the room tightens. Then he flips the photo and laughs. He never saw Pennywise. He couldn't see Pennywise. And here's the most important detail of this entire episode. Adults in Derry aren't just blind, they're being blinded. In the book, the parents couldn't see blood, floating bodies, apparitions, or photographs bleeding into reality. The same curse is happening here, the curse that isolates children and protects the creature living underneath their feet. The scariest part, Bowers isn't lying, isn't covering up, isn't gaslighting. He genuinely sees nothing. That's how Derry survives, not by hiding the monster, but by hiding the victims. The threat of Juniper Hill and the real power dynamics. When Lily pushes back, Bowers drops the smiling mask and throws out a threat that burns through the entire story. Juniper Hill Asylum. That place isn't a hospital. It's a graveyard for inconvenient truths. Threatening a child with it says everything about how Derry handles fear, not by solving it, but by locking it away. But this time, something shifts, because while Bowers dismisses the kids, someone else is paying attention, someone who isn't under Derry's spell. Leroy, the first adult to see the cracks. Leroy, fresh to town, untouched by the generational blindness, watches Will struggle through something supernatural and recognizes it for what it is, real. And that makes him dangerous. Adults aren't supposed to see anything. Adults who do rarely stay long. But for now, he becomes a silent anchor for the truth, a role the deeper they walked into the tunnels beneath the Cressmont, the more the air changed. It wasn't just cold now. It felt occupied, like something ancient breathed through the walls, watching, waiting, remembering. The kind of silence that has a heartbeat. Jonathan kept the flashlight forward, but every few seconds he would jerk it backward as if expecting someone to be right behind them. That's the kind of tension these tunnels create. You start imagining footsteps that don't exist until they suddenly do. And that's when it happened. A soft, wet drip echoed somewhere behind them. Then another, forming a slow, unnatural rhythm. The kind that doesn't follow gravity, but intention. Pennywise's intention. They stopped. The drip stopped. The tunnel exhaled. And in that fragile silence, you could almost hear a faint hum, low, melodic, like a child humming a lullaby they were forced to remember. A lullaby that didn't belong to this world. Jonathan whispered, "Don't turn around, just keep moving." But the problem with fear is, it doesn't take orders, and neither does curiosity. Tessa turned, and instantly regretted it. Because the tunnel behind them, the one they had just walked through, was no longer empty. It was bending, warping, reshaping itself into a familiar shape. The curve of a mouth. The glint of eyes, the subtle tilt of a head that shouldn't exist in a place with no people. The tunnel was smiling, not with teeth, but with intention. And they weren't alone anymore. Tessa grabbed Jonathan's arm, her breath trembling. He looked too, slowly, and for the first time since the episode began, the facade of the calm, rational teenager cracked. His breath hitched, his pupils dilated, his mouth opened, but he couldn't form a word. Because when Pennywise wants you to see him, you don't see a clown. You see what he thinks you fear most. And right now, they were looking at the thing that town fears most. Its own memory. A shape stepped forward from the darkness. Not a clown, not a creature, but a boy. A boy who shouldn't exist anymore. The missing Schwabacher kid. Henry. Jonathan had seen his picture on missing posters for years, but those posters had long been ignored, forgotten, faded by rain and indifference. But this wasn't a memory. This wasn't a ghost. This was Pennywise, wearing the fear the boy wore like a costume. Henry's face was pale, his eyes too hollow, his smile too wide.